I think it's interesting that you're in the school board
Right.
and you're working as an educator and you're working as a leader with other Métis students at a time when we're really challenging the way we look at how Indigenous students were treated in the
Mhm.
school system. And I'm wondering how you bring that into your day to day, every day. It's not just Orange Shirt Day.
Right, and I think it goes back to what I was saying, the grandfather teachings of how sacred they are, of just being loving, having humility, having compassion, and working with the students to reconnect with the community, their elders, their own way of knowing and being.
Yeah.
I think it's also kind of important too to kind of like keep up with like these days as well and to not like forget about what it was back then and still sometimes now and what they're still finding residential schools now, right? So I think it's really important to keep up in the history and to make sure that we're never forgetting what these students, these Indigenous students and children were facing throughout the time as well.
You're also a unique generation because I often feel terrible that we didn't learn the proper history in high school. You're in a generation where you're learning the proper history
Mm-hmm.
in high school, and we're going to look to you to carry that forward. Do you see that from where you are?
For sure. I think now that the truth is like finally out there and there's more truth now being put out there, I think now it's finally we're getting to a point of actually recognizing what Indigenous students actually then faced, right? Especially going back to my grandpa, it wasn't talked about, right? He didn't want to talk about it because they were punished if they talked about their culture. They were punished if they were talking about their ancestry, whatever, right? So I think it's very important that we're recognizing this and being truthful, like, hey, this is what happened. Like, we're not hiding it anymore, right? So I think it's really important to put it out there.
What are your thoughts on that, Fawn?
Yeah, I think as a school board, just the recommitting of what have we been doing really well and what can we change? Like, what are the barriers still that we face in all the levels of like hiring, of representation. So yeah, I think that's why this is so important. It's kind of us recommitting as a school board of like what does that look for like to us, not just check marking things. It's like we really want to make sure that we are doing it properly and we are doing it with compassion and we are doing it the right way.
And Sienna, you are on the Windsor Essex Council of the Métis Nation of Ontario. Why is it important for you to not only stay connected to being Métis, but be a part of leadership in that?
I think it's very important because my grandpa was one of the founders and the starters of the Métis Council. That probably started in the early like 1990s. I want to say like the Windsor Council. So he was like one of the ones to help start it up and bring awareness to our area to get a council for our area. So I just remember like being like 4 or 5 years old, like when my dad was the president, just kind of like getting in like the meeting room, sitting like the corner, drawing or just listening into like the meetings. And it's kind of always been like a part of my life. Like no matter if I went like once a month, every couple of months, whatever it was, I've always kind of been a part of the council or the Métis like heritage some way, no matter what, whether it be like the meetings, the activities that we did, the kayaking that we did, whatever it was, the art that we did, whatever. So I think it's also really important to continue this as I grow up. And I think being one of the youth reps as we're trying to start up the council again for the Windsor, Essex to Chatham, Kent, to start up that council again. So I think it's really important to try to be one of the leaders to help start the council back up again.
How are the efforts going at trying to restart that chapter?
So it's been a process, right? It's just kind of reaching out to people, saying like who wants to volunteer their time to go on to the council again, and kind of who wants to take this opportunity to reconnect with our culture. So I think we have a big meeting with some like head people in Ontario coming down to Windsor region in October. So they'll be coming in and we'll be having a meeting just talking about trying to get people to come back in and hopefully finalize and start up the council again in Windsor.